Thanks everybody for joining us for today's mastering session. We're going to be talking about projects. No, I'm kidding. We're going to be doing custom maps and shapes. I am operating in a project here, and this is kind of what this contents looks like. We're not going to go deep, but for instance, I'm going to come in here and launch a PowerPoint right out of here. So this kind of acts as one container. So let's get going with custom maps and shapes. Quick review, because it sounded like a lot of folks missed the session back in July with Olivia and Tom, and they covered geographic maps. And like I said, my background is manufacturing. I never really touched geographic maps. I was introduced more in the custom map tool. That is actually fairly old add-in too. So even folks are, if they're back in Jump 14, et cetera, it should work. These are some examples they went over. They took a look at a world map, overlaid some education data, San Francisco crime data overlaid, and then a pretty cool bubble plot that was animated for a storm that could track the eye of a storm as well as the wind speeds. So the geographic maps are what we're calling, they come with Jump, they're built in, and Jump will automatically search for those files and maps given what's in a column name. Now for us that we're going to look at today on the custom maps, really it's wide open. This is just a brain teaser of what's potentially out there. There's a ton of stuff on the community. On the left, and of course, you'll see in some Denver and Colorado. Yes, I'm based out of Colorado. These two examples on the left are actually coming from ESRI shapefiles that you can go and download. In this case, it's the Denver voter precinct. Got some RTD data. I'll explain more later why that is. And then I dug up a cool wildlife one, a Colorado snake population that we brought in and converted to Jump format. So we will do an ESRI file conversion today. Center here is a solar. So we have a customer that designs and builds utility scale solar tracker, and they use the custom map add-in to build a custom map of their whole utility scale solar field. And they eventually overlaid maintenance data to kind of track down some reliability issues that you can kind of see in this red. On the left is on the right, for any semiconductor folks, I've lived that world too. And this top map, this is where I actually introduced custom maps. I did a lot of overlay tracing of different semiconductor tools where we would mostly fighting particles, which is never fun. But these maps were used to review in our morning and night pass downs with the technicians to say, okay, these chambers have issues, get in there quickly. And then of course the classic one, which is done by XY coordinates, is a die wafer map. And of course, Mike Anderson again has done a lot of work on the semiconductor toolkit for those specifically. So there's tons of stuff out there on those. As far as the type of data that you need, we will not be covering the first two. That's what Olivia covered last month. We're going to focus on custom shapes and maps. And really, after talking with Olivia and Tom, we said, what's the definition of custom? Really, it's the stuff not shipped or already installed with Jump out of the box. So I mentioned ESRI shapefiles. We will see those. And then I lumped the 3 into this local XY coordinate bin. Existing, an example, we're building out a semiconductor plant, lots of floor plan XY coordinates, evacuation routes, etc. Those are some files that could be out there if you're interested in stuff like that. We will be doing an image and sketch. That's bringing an image into the custom creator and kind of just etch a sketch it and create polygons, shapes, or you can just purely sketch XY. You can sketch your own polygons in the custom map add-in. Now, as far as the locations where Jump automatically searches for maps, these are the locations. You have 2 windows. Well, there's a regular Jump and Jump Pro. And I believe, just for the record, anything we're doing today is not Jump Pro. So I think we had 70% of the folks that were on regular jump. That's all we're using today. This is a good place to know that if you create a map that you think you're going to reuse over and over, you can bring those files into this location and then let jump search it automatically. And you don't have to do any map role column properties. So speaking of column properties, the jump map shapefile structure and relationship, if folks have read any of the jump documentation, it kind of just reads words, words, words. It's kind of hard to kind of piece everything together. I hope this helps. This is just a graphic showing the 3 files that are in play. And I'll actually start over here. There's 2 files that jump needs to see to create a map. There's a -xy.jump and a -name.jump. The prefix also, when you name these, needs to be exactly the same. That's actually how the connection between this file and your coordinates is made. And then the shape ID is the specific column that's going to identify the shape name. So hopefully that makes sense. Within the name file, we will go create a map role column property that tells jump, yes, this indeed is the file and the name that defines, you'll see here, shape name definition. Now your final file, of course, you need data. So this can be named anything, but we do need to tell jump via another map role column property. We need to point it to this name file. So the connection is here. Now I just realized that these column names do not have to be the same, but your individual rows in those 2 files need to be identical for it to work correctly. So hopefully that helps. Just briefly, as we go build these, this is what's happening. And if something doesn't work right, you go, did I get the map property right? Did I misname something? All right. Let's get into first a review. Since folks haven't seen geographic, I'm going to review an example Olivia did. And again, it's going to auto search, and there's that path name again. But this is a map that Olivia created, world map, and she overlaid education, duration of education overlaid onto the countries here. We'll quickly go make this for folks that maybe have not seen the geographic map. We'll go ahead and go to Graph Builder. And interesting, let me open this up, because if folks haven't seen this, there is this map shape drop zone. That's if when you drop a variable or a column in there, JMP's going to go search that file location and sees if it sees a map. And in this case, territory were the countries. And kind of watch how this X, you'll see XY go away, and it's replaced with lat long. And then I think in this case, she did years of compulsory education, kind of dragged over as a color overlay. So that's kind of the gist of those. And you can get into that file location. For instance, here it is. And you can see what comes packaged with JMP. All right. Ooh, interesting. Sorry, I just noticed this. Map shape not found. It didn't find world. Why is that? Because world is right there at the top, and it's the summation. So another note, if it doesn't work and JMP doesn't like it, it will tell you right here, map shape not found. So that's pretty cool.
And Clark, let me just point out that where that will bite you is on spellings. And JMP ships with what it thinks the spellings of countries are. And if you put in a spelling that's different, it's going to say, I don't find that spelling. And so, and if it doesn't find it in this map, you can see there's gray for Antarctica and Greenland because there's no data for that. Well, you're either will be gray or you might even be whited out. But the point is, there is a list of spellings and they have to match.
That's a good point, and I've actually experienced even just pulling kind of some dirty data that was hand entered, and it's like, oh, it's just states, and it choked on a lot, and it was because of spelling. Yep. Thanks, Tom. All right, let's go take a look at. I'm not going to save that. Let's go take a look at our first example. This is looking at the Denver voter precinct. So really this exercise is converting an ESRI shapefile to the JMP format. ESRI, if folks are not aware, it's the Environmental Systems Research Institute. It's the primary institute that's worked with both private and government sectors to create a standard map file. I got friends in satellite data imagery stuff, and they talk about this all the time, and I just know a little bit. But you can go look them up, and they have a ton of good resources. So we're going to make the Denver voter precinct map here. And since I do have column switcher, I'll show you how to add a column switcher as well. It looks like I got council, House, Senate overlaid onto those voter precincts. One thing to note on this one, I'm going to come back over. You'll note there's no star or asterisk for a map roll column. So even if I get in, so there's no map rolls. Why is that? I'm just kind of showing you where you could end up. In this example, I went and placed these election precincts. They're residing in where JMP automatically searches. So there's just a quick sidebar. That's what you can end up doing, but I'm going to show you how to do this manually. All right. So the process steps. First thing you're going to go do is download your favorite ESRI shapefile, and they're typically zipped. So you'll go ahead and use a zip utility. And then once unzipped, I think Tom and I agree, this is kind of the typical stuff that you end up seeing when you unzip that. I don't know what those other files are, but our interest is this .dbf file, and then this .shp file, the shape file. So once you have those, JMP will recognize those. So you can go file open and you go directly to those. Now in my projects, I already have them sitting here, but the rest of this process is the .dbf here. You're going to rename that to that dash name file. And as well as the .shape will get renamed the .xy file. And then once we have those renamed, we'll go ahead and add map roll column properties and then get some data and actually make a map. So let's do that. I'm going to open up my shape file here, and you'll get an idea what this looks like. You have a shape and a part, and then an XY. And in this case, this is lat long. And if it is lat long, you can start to add like background maps. That's how I added a background map that we're going to go do. If it's some local coordinate, like my snake example wasn't in true lat long, you'd have to convert it somehow. And I was not able to overlay a background map. Anything else to highlight here? No, let's rename this. So we're going to save as. I'm just going to put, let's say precincts 2-XY. I'm going to save it right in my project content so you guys can see it right here. I'll open up the DBF file. We'll do the same thing. I'll do a quick save as. 2-name. And now remember, XY file, we're good. Our prefix names, they look identical. That's good. Name and XY. Now we got to tell JMP that this is associated with this XY. I note in here, it looks weird. Precinct is a continuous variable. It looks like it gets renamed over here to precinct C. I'm going to use precinct C to make this connection. So to add a map roll, I'm going to do right click, column property, and then column properties. And all the way near the end, here's a map roll. And we're not doing shape name use. We're defining what the shape name is and how it links back to the actual XY coordinates in the XY folder. So I'm going to call this shape name definition, and I'm going to hit apply and say OK. So we can confirm that here too. There's this asterisk. And if you left click on it, you see there's a map role in place. For projects, a glitch I just learned. You better save this data table and save your project, because I found out that this column property will move or not be saved as you proceed. So I'm going to open up my data. And in this case, I just had abbreviated the actual name file for these other districts. I'm going to create now the link between this data to the name. So same process here. I'm going to right click on this precinct C, column info, column properties, map role. And in this case, it is shape name use. And we are going to go tell it what shape name to use. So my project contents, there's my name file, say OK. And that's going to ask this shape name definition column. So remember, I did say precinct C in that other file as well. So I'm going to tell JMP, yes, that's the column of where to go find that. Apply, OK. I'm going to save. And in theory, if everything's worked correctly here, we'll get back into Graph Builder and try to make a map. So Graph Builder. Show you that the map rolls here. I'm crossing my fingers that this creates did create a map. So that's good. One thing interesting, this large space over here, I'm going to overlay. So I'm going to walk you guys through this. There's a right click. Since we do have lat long, you can add a background map. Right now we're creating the primary map that we're going to overlay data onto. The other type of map is a background map that JMP has, and that's a right click, graph, background map. And of course there's a couple of built-ins here. I'm going to use this street map service. You can even choose a web map service and tell it a URL link. This is the one that JMP uses, that has contracted with. And I'm going to do the dark, say OK. So what's interesting is this giant district. This is the Denver International Airport. So just kind of wanted to show you guys that. Now we're going to overlay some data, and I'm going to put in my RTD district, because there's a huge debate on offering free RTD in Denver. And it just went live with a pilot for free. So train from the airport all the way downtown and buses. That's kind of why I picked this one. So if I say, so I got a decent map, I'm going to say done here. And we may want to do some cleanup. And I think Olivia showed me a cool trick as I watched her last session in July. She holds down Alt key, and then I'm going to come up to the red hot button and do a left click. And it brings up all your properties that you can engage with a right click. I'm going to turn off these axes because it's not providing any more information here. This just kind of cleans it up. We're not really interested in the lat long here more than the visual. So there's our map we made. What else did I want to show you guys? Let's add a column switcher. Folks have seen it. You know where to get it. If not, it's under the red triangle, and it's all the way down under this redo, and then column switcher. And in this case, I want to replace RTD district with all the other categorical columns here. And so at this point, now I can go and say, well, how does my council districts overlay with the voter districts? And you can kind of see and toggle through there. And that's column switcher. Pretty handy. All right.
Clark, while you've got that one up there, can I ask you to right click in it and pick customize? And the only reason for showing it is and pick the shape lines, the bottom one.
The shape. Yep.
You see the line color, it's a light gray. And that was working really well with what Clark had, because he had kind of a black background and then he had colors, and it looked like white on the colors and white on the gray. Well, sometimes you'll get enough of a match that it's very hard to see the district. So you can change that to white, or you can change it to black, whatever. So in this case, just hit apply. And,
yeah.
It'll change sort of the clarity of the districts. And then the one other thing that was there was it offered transparency. Now that's on the line, but if you have it on the actual colors, which you can actually make it so you can sort of look through the color data if you've got like geographic terrain underneath in your map. So over there, you right click.
I can get over here. Yeah, I was going to say I do that with the solar one. So say 0.
Okay. Didn't mean to steal thunder on that, but I think that customize on the lines, I've had many customers complain that this default is just not working. Well, there's a way to fix it.
Yeah, I think it'll show up. I will show that transparency again on the solar example, but yeah, it's very cool to be able to see through it then and see the terrain. Yep. All right. That's our precinct and our ESRI. So what we did, right? We converted, we brought in, we renamed these files, we added those map roll columns, and then we're ready to go to make some maps. So the second example, or I'll call it the case study, is this solar tracker maintenance case study. A little bit about the what this company was doing. So they actually design and build this system here, which is called a single axis solar tracker. And you'll see these maintenance workers are working on a drive line, a main drive line, and there's slew gears. So there's a control system on board, and it will track the sun from east to west, trying to maximize or production, basically, right, of electricity is trying to maximize. Their current state a year and a half ago was they had a bunch of data in spreadsheets. So of course, what do we say in JMP? What's the first thing we do? Graph your data. So they did convert, got some licenses of JMP, started looking at distributions and Paretos of defects, which was cool. What they were struggling with is their naming convention, and you'll see it in these files, is very hokey, very difficult to understand. And even across their site, they weren't naming the blocks and the rows consistently from plant to plant. So a map became the idea of being very helpful to overlay this maintenance data. So just a little bit more background. This is a satellite image of the entire site. We're talking hundreds of acres. This was taken during construction where the top of the plant has not been built yet. Here's an image of a map they created, and you'll see these very fine lines. These are actually each row. And in the custom builder app, that takes a very long time to do. But once it's there, now they have it for the life of the plant, which is a 25-year design life. So the map's built, they can continue to collect data and then overlay these. And again, in this case, they were able to find this hot zone here, and that led them into walking, specifically asking for geological information, slopes, soil data. So stuff was moving, and they were having reliability problems, and they were using this drive line twist as a metric to tell them what was good and bad. For us today, we will not do this. It will take way too long. But what we will do, you'll see this lower cluster of what we call blocks. A block is one of these that contains 12 or 13 rows, I believe. We're going to go use the custom map creator to create this map. And we'll kind of walk you through that. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and launch under the add-ins, map shapes, and there's the custom map creator. Okay, pause. What just happened? We see an empty XY table, and we see the name. So the custom map creator is going to build these files for you, and it's going to create the map roll column properties. definitely one difference than converting that ESRI when we had to go specify that. So you'll see this stuff is going to get built here. Here's where it starts in the custom map creator. It's asking for a table name. Let's call it Solar Tracker. And in this case, we're going to do kind of an etch and sketch. So I'm going to I'll show you how this works. I struggled with this when I first learned this, of how to get an image in here, but it's fairly straightforward. See, there's a Solar Tracker small block, and I'm going to go ahead and drag that image over. So that's how that gets in, or at least the simplest way I've found. I don't know if there's another import way, but this is how I've been doing it. Now, once it's in there, we'll probably want to, we can move this around. Okay, I'm lining up this lower corner here first, and then I'm gonna click and drag to try to get my whole picture in here and somewhat square. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now you're ready to hit next. If you do this too early, it's very painful. You're going to have to go back and start again. So warning, if you're using a graphic, get it sized up, get it where you want here, because once you've gone next, it's frozen. You'll have to start over. So here's the meat and potatoes of how to create the two files. I'm going to line size. This refers to as we draw the polygon lines and start tracing. That's the size of those lines. I'm going to make them larger for you guys to see. We'll change them to, say, let's do green. And this little fill shapes I use just about every time, because what it does when Jump automatically closes a polygon, it'll highlight the shape so you know it's complete. And of course, if it's off or something, you'll see it right away, and then you can hit undo and you can go back and kind of correct that layout. The shape name, here's the beginning of that shape name. There's a part ID as well. We won't use it today, but you saw it in the Colorado snakes. There was multiple blue zones. I like to think of it as Hawaii. The state of Hawaii has many islands. So if that would be Hawaii, and then there would be part ID, Big Island, Oahu. That's what that part ID is. Okay, so we're ready to go. And at this point, I'm gonna come down into the image, and I'm gonna start left clicking points on this image. It's not going to be pretty. I'll try to go fast. When you're ready to close, Jump closes the last line for you. So I'm going to say next shape. Now it's highlighted. It says I'm done that shape. We'll just do a couple more. Next shape. Next shape. One more, and then we'll take a look at the. So you could see, if you were doing this row by row, how long it took them to build that map. So if I'm ready to go, what I do like this finish with random data. When you do use this button, you'll see what happens here. I'm going to go ahead and save it to the project contents. Select, and what it did is it went ahead and created that map, and it simulated some data for me, just so you can get a quick confirmation of is it working? Is it what I want? It generated the random data file, and take note what's sitting here, that map role property. So it created that for you. And then look at the names of the XY. And you can see them over here, XY and name, Solar Tracker. So then whatever name you started that process with, it updates those data tables. And now if you want to get fancy, we could do the same thing with the image, and then we'll do that transparency trick here. So we can bring that same image, the small block image, back in. I find this to be a little bit glitchy, tedious. In this case, it runs differently. You can point and you can grab and drag these around. But again, my process will be, I'll try to line it up down in this lower corner, and then you can grab the edges and stretch Okay, that's starting to match. I'm going to stretch to try to align these blocks. So it's a little tedious, but once you have it frozen, it's perfect. Now the transparency piece, let's try that. So let's go back over to our data here, and this is a right click on the transparency. Do right click. 1 is opaque, 0 is clear. Let's just try 35%. So then now you get that ability to kind of see through there. And these folks did use that a lot. They actually they were overlaying satellite images and some other data as well. And from here, we can do this similar cleanup if you want, or you can keep the scale. So similar types of activities. If we, wanted to come up here and pull this stuff off, we could do that. And you got a pretty cool map. As far as the examples, those are the ones that I wanted to cover. I did want to touch on some links that will come with this journal. And then there's the custom map creator add-in link. There's Olivia's geographic maps. Mike's got his cool make a wafer map in 30 seconds. And then I have these 2 other interesting ones. David from Sandia did a cool map, an organization map, and he overlaid it, I think, training stats. So a totally different way of looking at, hey, how's the organization being trained? It was really cool. And then there's a health body metrics one here that, and technically speaking, that was really interesting too, where, not fancy, but drew the shapes of the body and looked at cumulative injury rates and stuff like that. And this office temp study is the one that's in the JMP documentation. If folks haven't done that one, start there too. It's a good one to go through. I'm going to pause right there and see if there was any questions that we could maybe help with.
There is a question that's come in. It's more of a comment. It said one could go into the file and round or tweak the XY coordinates. And absolutely.
Yeah.
I've done an example that I've shared with Clark, where the Bureau of Engraving and Printing gave me the image of the printing plate of 32 $1 Federal Reserve notes. And, I went through and kind of did the rough click, click, click on the 4 corners of each of the images. And pretty soon you could get a very good idea that, these things are very evenly spaced, and come up with, well, really, what is the dimension of each of those individual note plates that are all put together into this set of 32. And you're right. And that way you could get it to perfectly rectangular. And in Clark's case, it looked like they were all pretty much the same size, but you could imagine putting those things on terrain that they weren't all absolutely perfectly square to each other. But the answer is yes, you can go in and make them all look more square, or maybe he's going to do something very round here. I don't know.
Well, I'm going with what you were saying. Like, I've done stuff where I've created almost some round feature, like a chamber or something, and then you can kind of get a radius, and then you just pick a center point, like, oh, this is at 80-40.
Yep.
And then create a radius, and then create those custom XY coordinates. Yep.
Eric?
And another question that has come in, using the custom map creator, it's pretty easy to make rectangles, but when I've tried to make circles, I had to do many, many clicks to get a roundish shape. Is there an easy way to generate circles in a custom map? And I'm going to say the short answer is no.
The short answer is no. If you know what the radius is and you want to try to make it accurate, just pick center points and then try to generate your own, but it is more work. Yeah, there's no, it's polygon, it's drawing lines.
Yep.
There's no splines or anything that are built into this add-in.
And I did want to make a comment. I don't know that we can check it out in the very, very short term, but whenever you drag a picture into the background, somewhere there's a right click path or something where you can say, rescale the picture to fit the box. So where Clark was sort of doing some dragging and changing the size of the shape, like if he dragged something in, I know that when I've done this in the past, that there was a way to actually right click on it and see if you can go to.
Lock, size, scale, fill graph. There it
you go,
is.
fill graph.
Oh,
So-
Tom, I learned something every time.
I didn't want to do that while you were on the fly because I wasn't.
Yeah.
We'd get to it, but I know you could do it.
Now that you mention that, I think we were playing around, or if they found that in the solar one example too, like this on the earlier maps. Yep, there you go. Right click, image. That's good.
He's suggesting he has a circle formula, Clark.
Right, you could probably make just a table with some points for a circle and then import them and then maybe massage it that way too.
I definitely haven't done it where I don't know about importing into this tool, but creating a map in Graph Builder. Is that what you meant, Eric?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I think just takeaway, if folks haven't been into geographic, if there's need for that those are pretty straightforward, and you're armed with at least where those files are, that if you move into converting an ESRI file or creating a new one, you know, if you want to reuse that, where you have to place those -xy and -name files. I didn't make stuff look super pretty. I was very practical, fast to communicate these heat maps, in this case of semiconductor particles or stuff, very quickly to, I'll say, an audience that is more operator technician based. So I just loved it because it could be super quick and I didn't have to refine it. So yeah, you try it. Get this custom map, add in, play around with the background maps. Background maps needs to see a lat long for that to work. So you may find ESRI files that maybe weren't based on lat long, but most of them are.
Todd,